The dangers of AI surveillance. In the United States, the growing implementation of AI surveillance networks raises a significant concern about the privacy and civil liberties of civilians. These technologies often operate without sufficient oversight, transparency, or the consent of the public. So, what is a surveillance network? A surveillance network is generally a web of recording devices that is used to watch massive amounts of people or in areas. So this is different from a surveillance system because those are generally privately owned small-scale camera systems. These networks have been used as tools by governments and private groups for centuries. Some of the origins of surveillance networks have been seen in Stalin's regime, for instance, or the Gestapo in Nazi Germany, or even the police during the Berlin Wall period, or China's Skynet. All of these examples have proven that governments highly desire and are incredibly powerful when using surveillance networks. So what are some of the dangers of AI surveillance networks? Since these technologies often promise to enhance public safety, but they don't explain that these can also bring unprecedented levels of surveillance without the consent or knowledge of those being monitored. This rapid expansion of AI surveillance networks also raises serious concern about the potential for abuse, including government overreach, misidentification, prejudice, and the creation of a surveillance state. So what are some of the different types of surveillance networks? Some, the more modern, are ones like China's use of the Skynet program, which uses AI to track behaviors like running through crowds, walking suspiciously, or having suspicious clothing. Some of the older examples are Nazi Germany's use of the secret state police, or the Gestapo. Originally, they were used to find spies, defectors, and sympathizers, but they devolved into finding anybody who threatened the regime. So, one use is in the Mangione case. The DAS system in New York City utilizes the roughly 35,000 cameras. And although he would disappear for about 5 days, I believe it was, they were able to find him, especially despite entering Central Park for a couple of hours and exiting somewhere random. This highly suggests that AI technology was used to sift through the massive amounts of data, and it shows how powerful these tools can be. Another use is in the China's anti-extradition protests. During these protests, surveillance technologies were used to identify targets or demonstrators during the anti-extradition protests. Protesters there often had to wear what you can see in the background, things such as goggles, masks, gas masks, biking helmets. Sometimes they even used umbrellas. And a lot of the citizens, according to some civilians in China, a lot of the ones that you even see in this picture were able to be captured or found and captured thanks to the network. So what are some of the ethical problems with these technologies? So these technologies can collect data indiscriminately, usually without any sort of consent or opt-out. Unfortunately, this includes information from minors and other protected groups. And especially in the US, where there's laws like COPPA that heavily crack down on the collection of minors, it can be very concerning. These AI networks also have the ability to create a digital dossier on individuals, even if they've done nothing wrong or have done nothing wrong in the past. Another problem is bias. So even though these tools are robots and supposedly are supposed to be unbiased, they still rely on biased data or flawed algorithms, and this can result in certain communities being unfairly targeted. There have been multiple studies showing that AI systems used in law enforcement, for example, are incredibly difficult to get working, and it's been thought that it might even be impossible due to the lack of context and unbiasedness that comes from using these systems. Now, why will these systems not get safer as they're developed? Cars are a good example of technology that has improved in safety over time. The reason is because of the fundamental goal that it's trying to achieve. At least in AI surveillance networks, they're trying to find human behaviors and human bias, which are fundamentally unpredictable. And they also can suffer from ethical flaws if they're trained on human data. And finally, they suffer from their inability to understand context, which is very crucial when trying to find somebody who might have committed a crime. Another very big problem is the ease of abuse. These systems are very, very high value targets for hostile groups. If you're going to get any amount of information, the best places are going to be those that harvest information indiscriminately. And unfortunately, that can be anything from cyber attackers, governments, and even foreign actors. And they can exploit these vulnerabilities to track people, to blackmail people, or even harm them. And even just the current advancements in quantum computing, like the Majora 1 chip, causes very, very high risks in current encryption methods. And in the next even just the next few years, high-end encryption methods could become obsolete, making all of these networks even that much easier for bad actors to breach them. So the first counterargument is that only the guilty need privacy, or the common saying, if you're innocent, you've got nothing to hide. Now, the problem with this is that it oversimplifies the issue with these AI surveillance technologies a lot, and it ignores the fundamental right to privacy and autonomy as a U.S. citizen you have. So, additionally, these systems are prone to making mistakes, and that can result in false positives and place the burden on individuals to justify their desires for privacy. The next counterargument is that AI removes bias. While AI, in theory, because its algorithm would remove bias, it's trained on human data, and that results in a human bias. And even if that data was removed, the design, the development, even what it's being used on is still human. And in the end, even the idea of an AI is fundamentally human. And that results in it being nearly impossible to create a algorithm or a AI that is completely devoid of any sort of bias. The final counterargument is that this technology can prevent corruption. And sure, in a perfect world, that these would be the perfect solution to corruption. But the problem is, and the unfortunate reality, is that we don't live in a perfect world, and even though justice is blind, humans are still going to be humans. And even if they can catch corruption, unfortunately, the justice system is always going to have loopholes and legal gray areas that are not immune to manipulation. So in the end, while these technologies are well-intentioned, the good intentions don't excuse the privacy violations that have been seen in China and even in the United States. So as citizens, we have to protect those rights to privacy and the rights to autonomy. Even if that means that the occasional criminal escapes detection, that means that we can avoid a world where everyone can be the suspected criminal.